Make sure we have the recorder on. Hope you all had a nice evening, nice relaxing evening. I spent my evening at the ballpark like usual. Love coaching. Love coaching. That's my passion. It's my my side passion project. Oh, got to get my trading hat. It'd be right if I didn't have my trading hat on. Keeps the thoughts together. I am superstitious about my trading hat. Good morning, Madge. Yep. Superstitious about my trading hat. I don't know. I don't know when it started, but I think it was no, I know exactly when it started. I had a really good day, and it prior to that, I had never worn a hat trading, and that day I had a hat on, and yeah, it was a really nice day. I think I netted close to 70K on that day, and so ever since then, I like to wear a hat. Stick to what works, right? All right. All right, all right, all right. All right, guys, I'm gonna jump right into the charts. Let's get started. Let's get going here. Let me just make sure that the audio is working. Yep. Okay. Check. Hey, easy money. All right, guys. So look, so we're gonna jump into the charts. The left-hand chart is a daily of the ES. Okay. And it's a regular trading hours only daily. And we're just going to review kind of the same stuff we highlighted yesterday, right? Was that on the daily chart? You know, the question has been the question that we're looking to that I'm looking to get answered is this a tradable swing low? So can we switch? Can we change our approach from selling rips to now buying dips, right? And while this immediate move, this close to 350-point move, this is probably a tradable low. We still haven't taken out, we're still headed into the 21 period moving average, which is acting as resistance and has been acting as resistance all the way down. So I think that because it's worked 3 times thus far, I think we need to be respected. However, we do need to point out that this is our second, almost our third test of it. Okay, so with every test, we know they get weaker, and we can probably, and when we reclaim a moving average like that, typically you're going to get a first touch fade, and then on the next subsequent test, you're looking for the reclaim. Another thing to highlight here is the 200 period moving average, which is this pink line here. And that 200 period moving average, we're oscillating right above it and below it, and that comes in at 66.18. Let me just, I want to see if this is a yeah, this is an exponential. I think I want to have that switched out to a simple because the simple is much lower. Hang on. Let me get the simple moving average on there. Hang tight. Thanks. Oh, I think it's down here. All right. So yeah, I think that's kind of important to see. We can see here that the simple moving average also right in the same zone. Hang on a second. Let me just get this sorted out here. Okay. There's a little bit more room to work with. All right. So yeah, so the simple moving average comes in at 6680, the exponential at 6618. Pick your poison. Both are right in the same zone, with the simple 200 acting as resistance coming in right into this little pocket here that we have with the 21 period moving average. All right. So let's take note of that. Let's just keep that in the back of our minds for our narrative for today. 6647 is that 21 period moving average. We looked above it today. We made a high at 6667. And thus far, we've pulled off. We're trading 6629. So that moving average comes in at 6647. All right. So from the daily perspective, really no gaps to fill in this area that we can highlight on ES. We've reclaimed the down channel trend line, and now we're pressing up against the 21. All right, let's move to the 4-hour chart, 4-hour time frame. That's really where we can really start to frame out what our bias will be for the day. And the first thing I want to point out here is that what we've been saying all along is that we kind of need to reclaim this 6680 to 6700 area to see an hourly trend change, right? And we also highlighted yesterday that on the 4-hour time frame, we can see that there are signs here that this might be a tradable low. Okay, so here on the 4-hour time frame, while we still not have an official trend change, there's a lot of evidence pointing a continuation of this zone of this move, and that 6680 to 6700 will be tested. So here on the 4-hour time frame, while 6680, 6700 remains the bogey to be taken, the hill to be taken, we can also see that we've kind of formed out from the low. So here's how the low formed. We formed the low just at the initial low was at 63.60. And then the next day we came back in, we tested that low to 63.53 quarter, did a look below and fail. And then it was off to the races for a 300-point move to the upside. Okay. During that move to the upside, we had a pullback. That pullback came right to half back of this this 50 move. So that pullback came in at 65, roughly 6503. Let's call it 6500 to 6510. That pullback held and retested the highs. Since then, we've been kind of chopping at this 6650 to 6670 area and just knocking on the door. But still, bulls have been really unable to gain a thrusty move over it. Another sign that we can see that maybe this is a tradable low is that we have this kind of head and shoulders pattern that has developed, right? Where this is the left shoulder, this is your right shoulder, and here's your head, right? We all know how head and shoulders work. So if you measure peak to trough, it kind of frames out that the target for that expected move, if that pattern does play out, would be up at the 68.10 area. Okay. The exact measured move will bring us to 66.24. Also, from the move off of 63.53, and then we made a high to 66.53, exactly a 300-point move. We then pulled back to 65.03. So we had a 150 point pullback, exactly half back of the move up. And that measured move, if that pattern does play out, lines up really well. A Fibonacci measured move lines up really well with the head and shoulders pattern completion, and that target would be 66.08. So I think that if we can get up here and test the 66.80 with strength and momentum and gain some acceptance up there, right? Where it's just not where we just go up there and we test it and we kind of fade away. I think that we can see that move complete up to 66.08, maybe 66.25. So another thing that we have to highlight for today, just from my read of this daily chart, right? I would not be surprised if today, if we put in a red day today. It's just so we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 positive days. We are still in a downtrend. We are at a higher time frame resistance point that has held. So it's closed below the open. Okay. So for today, what do we have? Coming into today, our overnight low is 66.02 and our overnight high is 66.67, right? So that's a 65 point overnight move. Yesterday was prime because we had an 85 point overnight range. It was one of the rare days, one of the 6% days that price did not touch the overnight high nor the overnight day comparison to yesterday's choppy inside day, which we also highlighted in the pre-market prep. So, all right, so let's just get into this morning and just frame out what we want to see for today and what would give us our bias, right? So thus far we opened at 66.2950, right? So we're opening what in relationship to yesterday's range? We're opening up in the lower portion of yesterday's range. We're opening just below the volume point of control and below the settlement. So those are all areas that bulls are going to need to get through in order to frame this as and complete an upward day. So are we going to get a move where we come back down, test yesterday's low? Oh, that's too big. So let's just go through the bear argument. Okay, so what we just opened, we're putting in a selling tail on the 15-minute. Let's let that frame out a little bit more. So are we going to get a move right where we test yesterday's low, bounce, and get back into value? Sorry, I'm framing out the bearish argument, right? So are we going to get a move that we test yesterday's low and then from there breach it, come back up, test yesterday's low, kind of test this chunky part of this distribution, and then extend lower for a move that targets the overnight low? I think that if we can get through yesterday's low with strength and momentum, that becomes the target. So if we get below yesterday's low, have a retracement that fails to get into value, right? So that a retracement of that move, because maybe initially it might be a look below and fail, but if we're unable to reclaim value area low at 66.31, I think you have to stay on the short side. You have to stay looking for a target of the overnight low. Okay. Now, what's the bull argument? Well, the bull argument is that we come down to yesterday's low, do a look below and fail, and then we get through this part of the distribution, through this chunky part of the overnight distribution, and we make a run for value area low at 66.31. Right? So do we look below and fail and then complete the move up, get into value area low and start forming value in here? right? And then that would frame out the move higher. Conversely, if we do that, look how many levels high and yesterday's settlement, which is way up at 66.50. All right. Um, what I'm kind of favoring is a look below and fail of the 66.50 of the 66 65 67 area. I think that would be a really good trade, and that would also keep the upward move intact. However, look at this, right? So on the 4 hour, we just printed a bearish outside bar. And that's what kind of has me thinking that maybe we're going to see a down day today. All right. So that kind of frames out the bullish and the bearish argument. I think that the only other argument that we need to consider is what if we get a choppy inside day, much like yesterday. And while I thought there was a high probability for that yesterday, I don't. Vega is suggesting that we're going to have some volatile price swings today, and so I would be on alert for that. All right. We're testing yesterday's low, so look out for that. Look for a failed auction down here. But then the real test is if we can get right back into value. Opening up with NYSE 1.6 to 1 negative. NASDAQ is 1.3 to 1 positive. The VIX is up 6% at 2560. Crude is up at 115.84, above yesterday's high. And it's going up to test its overnight high up at, looks like it's en route to test that overnight high, which was 116, the 116 area. All right. So so if we get to look below and fail, right? Look for a gap. The first sign would be a gap fill on the VIX. But if the VIX continues to hold its gap, then I think we have to start looking at targeting that overnight low. All right. So we just did a look below and fail on the yesterday's low at 66.17. And that's the way I'm framing out my day. If we do go sideways here for a bit, it wouldn't surprise me either. Although sorry, let me just take that back. I'd be surprised if we went sideways today. I think we're going to get some resolution one way or the other. So I'm staying bearish. I'm selling rips while we're opening below value, below settlement, outside of value. I have to stay bearish, and that's the way I'm framing it. What do you got, Bo? Uh-oh. Yep, I think so, Danny. Hey, Bo, check out. Have a look in chat real quick. Your mic. Yeah. That often happens to Bo's mic. He'll get it sorted out here in a second. I don't see how you can be not be bullish on crude.
Is that
Where's the
better?
chart? Oh, there you go. Nice, nice, nice. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I just like to point out to people the numbers can be super precise because of the mathematics of things, right? And how the computers, algos, bots, etc., um, trade off of these mathematical numbers and equations and moving averages and pivots and all the rest. So if you look at the NQ on my levels sheet, I've got the 200-day at 453 and three quarters, and look at where it traded to yesterday, 452 and a quarter, within 6 ticks. So no coincidence there, right? Like I think I kept expecting that we would maybe test that 200-day on the ES, which on my sheet I had it coming in yesterday. It was 72. Today it's 75. It still has a slight upward slope. Um, if we cannot, like what Manny was saying, kind of, if we cannot test that 200-day and we start to roll over and sell off again and we get bad news again, then that's not a not a great sign. And we should expect that, um, especially the way this rally, this 4-day rally, has run out of steam on the volume side. We had a very low volume day, obviously, yesterday, along with a tight range day. So we had a very contracting, low volume day. The day before that, we also had a very low volume day. So it's like, as these things start to run out of volume is when they can stall out and roll over. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. And then I'm a day trader, so I kind of wait and see how things set up as the day progresses. And the more patience I have, the more, the better I do with my setup. So I'll kind of call those out as we're going here. But for right now, um, I like to favor when we're below the open to be short seller, when we're above the open to be on the long side. And then I trade off the pullbacks to the moving averages on the 1 minute and the 5 minute. 1 minute's really my bread and butter chart. So that's kind of what I'll show people as we go here. And I still have a little more to do on my charts. Basically, what I do at the 15-minute charts is I set up this yellow box to represent the 5-day ATR value, and then I center it over the overnight price action to give me an idea if price expands above or below. You can move that. It's just an easy visual way of calculating. Like if the high of the day is in on the overnight, where would that ATR bring us? And you kind of know where it will, um, based on the charts anyway, but it just gives me one more visualization on kind of what that range might look like for the day. So I kind of just start out sort of centering it on the overnight price action. And then as the day develops, if I truly think a high or a low of the day has been put in, then I'll maybe move that around and see what it might look like visually. So that's it for now. I'm gonna keep doing that on the YM here and on the RTY. And I posted links for my level sheets. So if anyone has questions or anything on that, let me know.
Cool, cool. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, Bo, you mentioned something that caught my attention. You said when if you think the high or the low of the day has been put in, like what do you look for when you're looking for for signs that the high or the low of the day might be put in?
Oh, good question. Similar to you, Manny, like I've learned so much on look below and fails, those kinds of moves, and um, really like big levels like this. What I'm talking about with the NQ and the 200-day, like, if you go right up to something like that and you barely tick it, and you put in a reversal pattern off of that and start selling off, and then it's like sometimes those are, like you're saying, a first touch fade. And when they're a first touch fade and they don't go back to those levels much at all, like, that could be the high of the day. That could be our high of the week, right? Like in a bear market kind of scenario, you put in your highs early in the week and you sell off all the way down into Friday, and vice versa in a bull market. So it's, those kinds of things you just sort of are looking at and calling out as if then statements kind of thing. Because you never know until after the fact, right? But
Right.
um, yeah, so I've learned a lot off of you guys and some of like the market profile stuff. Like if you have um, a tail with very little volume and that sort of thing, like is it going to come back and sort of refill those areas with volume, and does it need to retest, and does it, did we get a proper retest? And it's all pretty much hypothetical until after the fact. So um, it's not exactly easy, but it's mostly for me a profit target kind of scenario. Like if I'm in a trade and it's a winner and I have a runner, then I use some of those if then statements to sort of help me stay in a runner longer than I might otherwise, because if you're watching these ATRs, it's another thing that oftentimes they will tick the ATR value like to the tick often. I mean, often, guys. Like if you have selling programs or buying programs and they're running them on a trend day one way or another, you watch that ATR value closely because they'll turn their programs off like right as they're hitting that ATR.
Yeah, well, those ATRs make a lot of sense, right? Just
Yep,
because so the ATRs are built off of prior days ranges,
right.
and you have to almost think that on a daily basis, there, whatever the number is, there's going to be there's not an infinite amount of money being put to work on a daily basis, much less on an average day, right? Where there's just a regular day in the markets that devoid of any big news releases or any lately geopolitical events. And so once those in my understanding, those ATRs kind of give me a framework for saying, hey, this is how much money gets put to work today, as re- as I can see it in a price chart, right? So if let's say an ATR is 75 points, 100 points, whatever the case might be, it kind of earmarks that amount of money that has been used and been put to work in the market. And I know it's probably a really rudimentary way of framing it, but that's kind of the way I see it. And it's there's just not an infinite amount of money being going out there and being put to work. So you can clip that. If you
Yeah,
guys
I
got to say about
agree. And I use the opening price principle a lot in that regard as well. Um, I'm trying to formulate a better sort of trade setup and rule set scenario for those trades, but the concept behind it is like for right now, because we're below the opening prices here, the concept would be like basically like if the big market makers, the big money has stock to sell, and we're, they sold on the open and we're below the opening price, chances are they have not gotten their orders filled or their balances, their books balanced the way they want to, right? So they'll turn on, it's a sell program to start, and they'll turn that on, and at some point when they turn it off, and the sellers stop coming in, that's enough for a nice little rally. And it's almost like they want that to happen because you'll watch it when and if we can get back up and retest the opening price of the day, you can expect sellers to come back in at that price because they often have more to to do in terms of their positioning and rebalancing. And so, like yesterday was a good example of, it was a range bound day. There wasn't a lot going on. But if you were watching and trying to buy those tests of the opening price, it worked great. And so it's not always perfect. Oftentimes they run through stops on one side or the other. And sometimes it can be also a choppy sort of doji day kind of scenario where they just keep kind of going back and forth across a level like that. But it's something that I'm working on in terms of like, how can I apply a rule set to this and actually trade it consistently? It just something I definitely pay attention to there.
Cool, cool. Hey guys, real quick. So remember, we were looking. So one of the signs that we wanted to see for the look below and fail, whether if that's going to be of the overnight low or of the earlier pivot low, which we're below now. That pivot low was in that 6614 area, which lined up with a gex level on SPX. So just as a heads up, what we said, we wanted to see an attempted gap fill on the VIX. Well, the VIX is, if you were trading the VIX on an opening range type of system, you would be long the VIX right now. It's over its first 5-minute high and it's continuing to move higher. So we're not getting any signs of that on the VIX, that this might be a good look below and fail. It's kind of also lining up with the narrative earlier that we might see a red day here based on the recent rally, also the technicals that we saw on the 4-hour chart. We're also opening with ticks that are just above 500, so they're not as extreme as you would think, where they're going to bounce. They're just hovering really at the lows. And furthermore, we have internals now that are 2.2 to 1 negative on the NYSE and 1.2 to 1 positive on the NASDAQ. So we're seeing that kind of red day scenario under the hood is playing out here. So just want to point that out to you guys. Stay alert. Make sure that you watch all instruments when you make your decisions for your trade. You want to make sure that you're on the right side of things, and I hope that's what we're helping you out here with.
So right now for my system, you'd be looking at shorting this pullback to the moving average. You can use the 1-minute moving average. What I'm typically doing is waiting average. I'll get closes. What I would be trying to do is trade goes my way and then try to hold a runner. So 1 seconds, you can try it here with like a 4 or 5 point stop, 13 and a quarter or so, and then I look for like 3 points. If I'm using a 4-point stop, I look for 3 points and then 6 points on it, and then try to hold it. That's kind of some of my setups. Like right here, you could also wait and see if you get the retest of the 15-minute sloping moving average up at 22, or you can also wait and see if you get the retest of the open at 29 and a half or so. it's hard trading on the 1 minute chart because of the how fast things move. So sometimes if I'm not quite ready, like right now I'm a little behind on my charting and on my morning prep. So it's like sometimes it's better for me to wait a little bit anyways. But if I'm behind there, then it's like sometimes I'm jumping, I'm just not really ready to my trading plan. Um, but you can see there, if you'd gotten that trade, it would have just stopped you out real quick. So um, if I'm stopped out, then one of my rule sets is to try and just wait and relax 10 minutes or so, see if that price action is going to tell me anything, whether this will follow through to the upside or will follow through downside, or if it's something.
Good stuff.
I don't even have my trading platform up yet. So I'm still kind of, I'll be right back.
All right, guys. So for me, I'm expecting today is a series 1 day, and on series 1 day, I'm expecting a high pivot. Today is series S1H. I'm expecting a high pivot somewhere in the time frame between 10:15 and 10:45. And so with the overnight inventory being long, my plan was to wait for that time frame. Like, let me get into let's get into the 10 o'clock hour, and from there, let's see what has happened with the overnight inventory, what kind of structure has developed, and then I'm looking for an entry into a short trade here. I mean, I still think that price just came back and tested yesterday's low, sold off, and now is trying to reclaim it. Okay. Aside from that, I'll also let the ATA execute for me. That's what we're seeing here. Another swift rejection from yesterday's low. The VIX came in a little bit, but yeah, it's just continuing to hover near its highs. So stay short. I'm staying short sighted here, waiting till we get to a little bit better structure here in the morning. We have this super big print. Guys, here's the other thing: when you get a big print like this 15-minute print here, man, that's a hard print to get back. Not saying that it can't you can't get it back, but
Yeah.
the probabilities are that you're not going to claim that back within the next two prints, unless the markets are highly volatile. But as we framed out this morning, we are expecting a day of heightened volatility here. So trade small, widen up your stops, use MES if you have to, but try to stay on the safe side of things.
But look at that. Look at that entry off the sloping 15-minute moving average. First touch. it's hard to get it. You got to be ready for it. You got to be looking and ready. Sometimes I go back and forth between having my orders in and resting versus trying to wait for a reversal pattern. But even if you don't have a reversal pattern in right there, you can oftentimes see if it rejects, and if it forms that little red 1 minute candle on there, you can try to just sell that right away with your stop above. I'm more of a guy that likes to put my orders in, and if I can get that first touch, perfectly at that moving average, and if it rejects right away, I love that kind of entry. I mean, that's just about as perfect as it gets. And now it should just absolutely collapse and sweep right on through and put in a measured move from, this is a 40, 35, or 40 point move. So we should have now a measured move back down through to like 80, if not lower, right? And so then I'll look on my sheet and see what kind of level comes in. And we have S1 at 92, prior days open at 90, but really we probably need to retest this 5-day moving average at 68. See how much cleaner that looks. So what I have is on my 1 minute chart here, I have my 13 period moving average. And then I have this purple moving average corresponds to my 15-minute chart. You see how much more difficult it is to identify that setup on a 15-minute chart. But by having the moving average overlaid on my 1 minute, you can see how absolutely clean that looks. And it even shows you a little level up here above 26 that you could have your stop at, or you put your stop above the open, when you're trying to take that first touch entry of, I mean, this one worked beautifully as well right here. I just, it's earlier in the morning, so it's a riskier trade to take it here, because they could easily sweep back up to the upside. But this one's about as textbook as it gets, and I love the way those moving averages can be overlaid with one another, so that I'm on the 1 minute chart, and it's showing that moving average at 20 and at 21 or so. And then if you look at it on this 15-minute chart, it's maybe even a little bit faster, like it's showing at 18 3/4. Here it's showing it, so I kind of have to coordinate those settings to get it super precise, but sometimes you don't need to. You just need to like kind of be ready and pick a spot, and sometimes you'll get it just right, sometimes you'll miss it by a tick, so. I'll put that circle on here for you on this one too.
So the reason why I was anticipating. So I'm coming into today, framed it out, anticipating lower price action today. I'm also anticipating a volatile day, right? So maybe we see early morning weakness, maybe we see good pop in the afternoon, something like that. But I think that the 300-point move off of the 63.53 low, I think that these conditions need to be reset, right? Also in the book, I think the book needs to work off some of those calls that are in there, and you can see our oscillators here, even on the slow period on the 14 on a 4 hour, we were just super overextended. And so we are also having a MACD crossover here while it remains in the bullish zone. We are seeing some red histo prints. So be mindful of that. Guys, we're now below the overnight low. Okay. So we hit the target, the early target we were looking for. We're now below that. And it kind of worked out just the way we thought, right? So we said if we get below the yesterday's low, we come back up, we test it. So we closed that 15-minute print just below, just on the lows, right? So we closed it at 66.60, 66.12. Price came right back up, tested yesterday's low at 66.17, went as high as 66.22, and since then it's just been nothing but downside in two straight red 15-minute prints. So stay on the short side. I think selling rips is the way to go today. Now let's be mindful of where can this bounce on us, right? What are we looking for here? Well, I think that we have to be mindful of that low at 65.67, but also let's see here. There's a good there's a pretty good support down here that I'm looking to buy if we see it. And that's framed out in setup number 3. So setup number 3 is support by 65.74 to 65.79. So let's call it 65.75, 65.80 for simplicity. And I'm looking for that area to bounce today. So heads up on that. If we get down there, if we get into that zone and we get into that zone at any time between 11 and 12 o'clock, I'll probably have a limit order sitting there. Today being an S1H day, let me just get the graphic up on what I'm expecting in terms of time pivots.
There we go. S1 tested and broke through those stops. So check out the next levels here, 86. Perfect test of that. 13-day moving average. Your next 5-day moving average at 68, right at yesterday's Globex session low.
Yep. Nice move here. Nice move. Nice. Okay. Let's just check out, see if the ATAs caught it for me. Nope. So that early high pivot now will almost certainly be a lower high. Let's just see here. I have to get that image up. Real quick, hey guys, heads up. VIX is up. When we first on our on our first on our first read of the VIX, we were up 6%. We're now up 12%. So heads up on that. VIX is ripping higher. It's confirmed by breath. Nvidia is down 1.7%. Tesla down 3.5%. Microsoft down 1.3%. And Apple's down almost 4%. All right, here's what I'm expecting in terms of time pivots. Let's see, where is it? It's this one HCD. This one HCD3. I had the breakdown short set up at setup number six. Just see if I can bring it up here. Some IDF news coming out on the wires here that they've hit an Iranian regime, and I don't know if did you guys see about Iran? Wow. Uh, let me just see if I can find it here.
Okay, so we've got a potential entry here off the 1 minute. I'd like to see it actually touch that moving average at 92 3/4. And I want those and then try to short the test of the high of the bar.
Tom, that's
Platform here.
I mean that it seems like he's getting angrier and becoming more unhinged. Oh. All right, so we have some ATAs here executing, guys, on the script. A4 short underway. Let me just see if I can get a screenshot of that.
There it is. So I'm going to put my short sell signal. Oh, why is it not taking?
Yep. Yeah. Here's the thing: is that what concerns me is we all know that he's the kind of guy Trump. I'm just and he goes on to say that his MO is that he's the crazy one that scares more rational people. Speaking of Trump, the problem is that Iran is that they're just as crazy, if not more. Well, the problem is that, and we've so in my opinion, I've seen him go, berating people, and then it was more, it was the dog's bark was louder than his bite. However, what I worry about with this situation is that, oh God, can't believe I'm getting political, but what I worry about with this situation, one thing I think I know about Trump is that he's I wonder how much he's going to be, his ego will be ending are not being heeded or even in fact more importantly being chided. So it's a tough one. That's the thing is and then their mom, and he knows it. You just you just got to wonder if you have to wonder he's if he's questioning his decision, probably one of the more unpopular wars in the last 2 to 3 decades, right? I don't think a war has been as unpopular since the Vietnam War. All right.
Yes, yes. Three line there. I don't know why that's not accepting my order. That's the that like gunshot thing is the Delta trader platform that they have different sounds for orders. That was actually an order rejection. Not sure why.
Can't make sense of that, Billy. Sorry.
So I'm trying to short here a retest of this ISR 96 bucket. I got it. I've got one bid at 93 3/4 and one bid at 90 3/4. Just with the trailing stop, it's tight and these things just stop out a lot of noise. So tight risk, it goes off, then it's a break even trade. But if the trade moves my way a little bit and then rejects, it's I take a little bit. So I might try it again right here, just maybe on like a little false break of the 6,600 level. Let's see if we can get like a little bit of a false pop through there. At 01 1/4. Okay, I got one. So now I'm 98 1/4 on one. And if it's false, then it should reject right away, but it looks like it wants to keep going higher. So there, I took a couple stops in a row. So not really feeling the flow right here yet. And I might try one more time here in this retest of the high of whatever bar this forms. So 07-ish, 7 3/4. And I'm gonna move it down. Let's see, 2 3/4. And again, if not, then this thing we could just keep ripping. They set it up to kind of run that liquidity both ways. If they're still worried about this thing, then there's going to be a spot here where it rejects and goes lower again.
Yep, same here, bro. I like the area. I'm short that area too here, 6604.75. And I'm risking 8 on it. But it's a back test of the overnight low. So it lines up with that. I have a fib cluster there that's in alignment. It's also within the window for a high pivot to form. So I might have to sit through some heat here, but I'm wrong up at 66.15.
Now where you want to be thinking is, for me, is 17 3/4 again.
Oh, I'm a little early on it. We're only at 65, 68 on SPX. I want it to be at 65. Uh, yeah.
I don't know why that's not working.
Yeah, with early on that.
Hi.
We have a good read on the internals, 1 point or 2 to 1 negative on the NYSE, and now the Nasdaq is flipped to negative. So we have on the Nasdaq 1 to 1 negative. Ticks just made. We just seen our high tick of the day at plus 600, a little bit over. VIX is coming off somewhat, coming off its highs. So we've now reclaimed the overnight low. And let's see if Bulls can get it to stick.
Here's from my sister.
It's not how storage of phone numbers works. Maybe for her though.
Man, those Truth Social posts, wild. Does anyone? Does anyone? Is anyone here on Truth Social? Okay. I guess it beats Threads. I guess it beats Threads. Threads is like the the liberal bastion for all libs. One of the things that frequently I have to be mindful of is so I'll run the PTG ATAs and then I'll also execute, my plan setups. And the funny part about that is that like the ATA will have me in a long and I'll be in a short. And I still haven't found a good way to manage that. So typically what I do is because I've been burned where I've taken the bad trade and the ATA has taken the good trade. It's worked both ways, probably 50-50. But since that's happened to me quite a bit, I've decided to just let the ATAs play out. think I lost connection here. Hang on a second, guys. Did I just lose connection? Oh shit! I know what happened here. All right. Looks like I've got a cog in the machine. I'm gonna have to relaunch Ninja Trader here. Uh, yep. Yep. Still 65.94 bid on the 66.04 short. But I'm having some problems with Ninja Trader. My left chart is frozen. What the hell is going on here? $1.8 to 1 negative on the NYSE internals, 1 to 1 negative on the NASDAQ. The VIX has come off and went as high as went over 27. I was back down to 26.34.
See if I can get my fill here on the spike, 16 3/4. Look at that again. Perfection off of that. Yeah, JM. I mean, there's just as much risk here. It's the risk is on both sides right now. So, you know, who knows what they can do. Um, the market, I think, really still wants to go back up to the 200 day. And you know, the fact that we didn't really test it on the ES is problematic to me. Um, I like it better that we tested it on the NQ and failed, but there's still plenty of room to run to the upside here if we get some resolution to this thing. And you guys know how this stuff goes. Like the longer it goes, the less reactive the market sometimes is. I mean, it doesn't seem like in this case that's what we're going to get, because this is a little different with all this oil stuff and everything going on. But my point is they could easily run this right back to the open, rip it right through, explore the upside of the range, trade to 75 before we even have any kind of meaningful news at all, you know. So I just always am formulating and thinking about the positioning, and it's just we don't know what the positioning really is and who needs to cover what, when, and where, and who needs to hedge or whatever, lift this or lift that. I mean, and it's so much of it is programmatic and um, portfolio balancing and stuff like that, that just, you know, stay disciplined, stay with your structure, have confidence in your, you know, your thoughts and your setups, and then just, you know, put the trade on, and it either works or it doesn't, you know. So even though I missed this here at 16 and 3/4, I'm leaving my offer in because, um, you know, almost what I'd like to see now is a retest of this little high and a failure, you know, a failure in the sense that we got it here. Can we get another one and have it really go down in a meaningful way? Like if you look at the ATRs and you look at this, like if the high of the day is in and you drag this box down, then there's where the ATR would tell me that we would go to 65.30, and that doesn't even really break anything. I mean, that just is sort of like normal ATR range, right? So I'm looking for that retest, rejection, and then a big, you know, kind of measured move down, back down into that. And I kind of don't mind missing it. If I miss it up here at 16 and 3/4, what I want to see is the 1 minute chart roll over again and get back to a downsloping moving average on the 1 minute chart. Um, so if this thing sweeps lower here, then I'll be looking to lower my offer back down to, yeah, maybe this '05 level or wherever that 1 minute chart is then telling me to try and get short again. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab another cup of coffee. Look at RTY, it's just pinned to its open. It's a decent recovery on the breath. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they give us another chance at the open here, but may not get it either, but $24,070 is my S1 level on NQ. Now we're through it. If we can hold it, then get this move back up to the open.
All right. Looks like I got all of this. I had some data issues there. I think I got them sorted out now. I think I got them sorted out. Wait, is this right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is right. Hang on.
So now that this 1 minute is starting to roll over some, I'm looking for the reversal again off the 1 minute. And oftentimes too, when it lines up well with this 15 minute, it's a really good setup. So I still haven't moved my 16 3/4 offer, but I'm waiting to see how this 1 minute chart develops here, because you could also try, try again just under this bar. Now that this slope is moving lower and it's printing closer to like 15 1/4, that's a pretty good fail spot too. The 1 minute moving average for me just being flat here, it really hasn't confirmed quite yet. So you can be early on this reversal trade if you want. And if a 10-point stop is within your comfort zone, that's fine. I like a tighter stop, so I want to see, I'm willing to risk like a false breakout on this with just a 4-point stop. Or if you can get it at 15 1/4, again, a 4 or 5-point stop instead of 10 points. But because this thing reversed here and the moving average started sloping up, you can also take your ATR box if you like this concept, right? And you can say, oh, well, what if we just put in our low of the day, right? And then we move higher from there, then, you might get a rally back to this 67.20 level, 67.15 or whatever. But what that would mean is we would be testing and reclaiming the 200-day moving average at 75. And that would be something that, in my opinion, the market kind of needs to do regardless. So even if we do that, and run some upside stops, I'm kind of thinking in my brain that, 67.20 is a level that we could get to, and it doesn't even change anything. I mean, it sort of like makes everyone feel more bullish, and that could just be where the sellers step back in and start sweeping again. So I'm watching this here closely. Look at that, 15 and a quarter. It couldn't even print. Printed 14 and a quarter right there and rejected 10 handles. I mean, quickly. So now the price action dictates to me that you're going to see a really sharp and sweet and fast rejection of this level. All the long stops are now, the sell stops are right below that figure. So I'd come back in here, and instead of my 16 and 3/4, I want to see the 14 and a quarter, maybe 15 and a quarter hold. And what I'm going to do is when this bar drops, when this 1 minute candle closes, I'll probably even try it like at 6 and 3/4. I want to see this. Here's the high of this 1 minute bar, 6 and a quarter. So I'll try a quick one right there just to kind of show you guys what I'm looking at. 6 and a quarter, I want to see that bar, the high of that bar, just hold. Hasn't been working though, has it? Right? So we'll see if I get filled on this. Could just explode right up through and into the opening price. I mean, really quickly. If I don't get filled on this, then it doesn't, I don't mind, because it just helps me understand that there's not enough buying pressure here. And the lower we go, the better the pullback entries work. The selling begets selling. The longs are trapped and they have to get out on the little rallies. So, but you see how this is now starting to curl and roll over. This is how a lot of times these buy and sell programs operate. Is they turn the sell program on, and what they're doing is they're just running sell stops on every candle. So when you get a good program, it looks like this, right? It's smooth price action, it's consistent, red bar, red bar, red bar, red bar, red bar, red bar kind of thing.
All right, guys, real quick. So a lot of price action, and really we've gone nowhere from.
See that? They couldn't even fill me at 6 and a quarter.
And we've really not gone very much further than what we kind of framed out in the open.
Drop it to 5 and 3/4 and see.
So again, just to quickly review, we had the opening drive lower, price breached the overnight low, and we said that in order to get start looking for longs, we wanted to see price get above yesterday's low and into value, and thus far price has been falling short. Came as high as yesterday's low, 66.17. We went up to 66.16, and thus far we're now back below the overnight low. So I'm still short that those 66.04s here on the right hand chart with 65.94 bid, and then I have a 65.89 bid below that. Just kind of sit out this noise. Being short for me here works. It's it's just part of what my system. So I have setup number, I think it was 6, was a breakdown short below 66.14 to 66.18. So I'm in alignment there. and it kind of jives with looking for that AM high pivot that I mentioned earlier to you guys. So that was that we were looking for a high pivot between 10:15 and 10:45. That window is now closed. So I wanted, as I said earlier, I wanted to kind of be short into that window, and I thought I jumped it a little bit early, so I was willing to give the trade a little bit more room. It's going to have to sit through a little bit more noise, but now we're seeing a resumption of the trend lower. So hopefully we'll get that night. I'll get that 94 and a quarter print filled, and then I'll slide my stop to, that'll be plus 10. I'll slide my stop 5 back from entry, and I'll just see if I can get the runner to run. Right now the run is at 89, 65, 89 quarter, just because I have a fib cluster there, but I might just extend that lower in a minute. Let's see how we get there. So far it's not the most momentous move. I typically like to see down moves accelerate and move with strength and momentum. For me, that's how I know I got ES, like I'm on the right side of it, is when, if I'm short ES and the move is lower and it's fast move, like you're almost out of a target before you can even blink. Uh, that's how if not, I tend to be looking for longs. But with that being said, I'm gonna have to peel off here for just about 20 minutes. I'm gonna leave you in good hands with Bo, and I'll be back right after. I have to just handle one quick task. Um, I'm gonna have to take down the chart though, but I'll be back in about 35 minutes. All right, Bo, take care.
Nice, Manny. Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, later, guys.
All right, guys. So this thing's rolling over right here on the 1 minute. We've got this candle printing up to the moving average. I'm waiting for it to print